If I told you a photo could curse you, would you believe me? Because last summer I took a selfie on a quiet boardwalk, and ever since, something has been following me. It started with a shadow in the picture. But what happened next made me question everything I know about reality. And if you think this is just another ghost story, wait until you hear what I found in my phone when I got home. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you might never take a selfie in public again. Part 1, Introduction, the day it all happened. I never really believed in ghosts. You know, I always thought those stories were just made up to scare kids or sell movies. But after what happened to me last summer, I don't know what to believe anymore. So, it was in July. I'd been going through kind of a rough time, work stress, relationship stuff, just life. I needed a break from everything, so I booked a weekend trip to this small beach town that a friend of mine recommended. The town itself was pretty quiet, but everyone kept saying you have to visit the boardwalk at sunset. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, it'll help you clear your mind. So my first night there, I decided to check it out. It was one of those perfect summer evenings. The sun was low, turning the sky orange and purple. The ocean breeze was soft and warm, and you could hear the sound of waves crashing against the pier. I remember walking along the boardwalk, just taking it all in. The smell of salt in the air, the sound of seagulls, the creaking of the wooden planks under my feet. There were a few people around, couples holding hands, kids eating ice cream, but it wasn't crowded. It felt calm, safe. At some point, I stopped at the very end of the pier. You know, where you can see the whole coastline stretch out on both sides. It was such a beautiful view. I wanted to capture it. So I pulled out my phone, took a few photos of the water, of the sunset, and even a quick selfie, because why not? Looking back now, I really wish I hadn't taken that last picture. Part 2, the photo that changed everything. Later that night, when I got back to my hotel room, I was feeling pretty good. You know, like maybe this trip was exactly what I needed to clear my head. I sat down on the bed, kicked off my shoes, and started scrolling through the photos I had taken earlier. Just casual shots, the sunset, the waves crashing, a couple of boats out on the water. They were nice. And then I swiped to that selfie. At first I didn't notice anything weird. I was kind of smiling. The sun setting behind me, it looked like a normal picture. But then I saw it. Right behind me, standing just over my left shoulder, there was this figure. It was tall, like way taller than me, and completely dark, like a shadow. But the weirdest part, the rest of the picture was perfectly clear. You could see the ocean, the sky, even tiny details like the texture of the wood on the pier. But this figure, it was blurry, almost like it was moving when I took the photo. But I swear, I didn't see anyone standing there when I took it. I was alone, completely alone. I kept zooming in, trying to figure out what it was. A person? A trick of the light? But the more I looked, the more wrong it felt, like it wasn't supposed to be there. And here's the thing that still gives me chills. The figure was so close to me, it looked like it was leaning in, like it wanted to be in the picture with me. I stared at that photo for what felt like hours. My heart was pounding. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation, right? But deep down, I knew something was really, really off. Part 3, things start to get weird. After seeing that photo, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe just a shadow, maybe someone walked behind me and I didn't notice. I mean, that happens, right? But the next day, things got weirder. First, when I woke up, my hotel room door was slightly open. Now, I know I locked it the night before. I'm one of those people who double checks, sometimes even triple checks. But there it was, open about a foot, like someone had been standing there watching me sleep. I told myself maybe I didn't close it properly. Tried to brush it off. But as I was leaving the room, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. On the floor, just inside the door, there was water, like wet footprints. But not mine. These were too big, like a man's footprints, and they were leading from the door toward the bed. I left the room as fast as I could and decided to go back to the boardwalk. I thought maybe getting out, being around people, would help me calm down. But when I got there, I couldn't shake this feeling. You know that feeling when you're sure someone's watching you, like there are eyes on you, but when you turn around, no one's there. And then I saw him, way out at the end of the pier. The same spot where I took that photo. A figure. Just standing there, facing me, completely still. At first, I thought it was just some guy enjoying the view. But then, I realized he wasn't looking out at the ocean. He was staring directly at me. I blinked, and for a second, he was gone. Like he had never been there. But I swear to you, I know what I saw. From that moment, I knew. Whatever was in that photo, it wasn't just a trick of the light, and it wasn't done with me yet. Part 4, the story of the Pier's dark past. After that day at the Pier, I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. I kept replaying it in my head, trying to convince myself I imagined it, but deep down, I knew I didn't. So that evening, I decided to go grab a drink at this little bar near the boardwalk. It was one of those small, cozy places where all the locals hang out. I figured maybe being around people would help me feel normal again. As I sat there, I couldn't help but ask the bartender if he knew anything weird about the Pier. I tried to make it sound casual, like a joke. I said, "Hey, so is this place haunted or something?" He didn't laugh. He just looked at me, dead serious, like he already knew why I was asking. And then he said, "You saw him, didn't you?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't even told him what I saw, but he knew. I asked, "Saw who?" And that's when he told me. Apparently years ago, a man had died on that pier. Nobody knows exactly how. Some say he fell, others say he jumped, and some whisper that he was pushed. The body was never found. Since then, people say his spirit never left. The bartender told me there's a local legend. If you go to the pier alone at sunset, sometimes he appears. And if you take a photo with him in it, he's chosen you, the bartender said. And once he's chosen you, he follows you. I laughed at first. I mean, it sounded crazy, right? But the bartender just shook his head and said, "You think you're the first person to come in here asking about him? You're not." He even said some people who saw him started hearing things, seeing him in mirrors and photos they didn't remember taking, like he's always there, just behind you. I didn't know what to think. Part of me still wanted to believe it was just my imagination. But another part knew that photo I took wasn't just a mistake. And if what the bartender said was true, then maybe that thing wasn't done with me yet. Part 5, the final night, he followed me home. After that night at the bar, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing what the bartender said over and over. Once he's chosen you, he follows you. The next morning, I packed my things and left town early. I just wanted to get as far away from that pier as possible. I told myself once I was home, everything would be fine. That it was all just in my head. But it wasn't. When I got home, things started happening almost immediately. The first night, as I was falling asleep, I heard footsteps in my hallway. Slow, heavy steps. At first, I thought maybe it was just my neighbor, but then I remembered, I live alone, and my hallway is inside my apartment. The next day, I kept hearing knocking, not on my door, but from inside the apartment, like someone was knocking on the walls or on the inside of my closet. And then came the photos. I was going through my phone, trying to delete the picture from the pier. But when I opened my gallery, there were more photos. Photos I don't remember taking, of me, sleeping, from the end of my bed, like someone had been standing there at night watching me. In every single one, that shadow figure was there. Closer, each time closer. The last photo I found, it was right behind me, like inches from my face. And the worst part, I was smiling in my sleep like I knew he was there. After that, I couldn't stay in my apartment. I left, stayed with friends, family, anyone. But no matter where I went, I'd hear those footsteps, I'd find new photos on my phone. It was like he was attached to me now. Sometimes when I look in mirrors, I swear I see something standing just behind me. Not moving, just watching. So yeah, I don't know what to do anymore. If you ever visit that pier, don't go alone. And whatever you do, don't take a picture. Because if he chooses you, there's no going back. So, what do you think? Was it all in my head? Or did I bring something back with me from that pier? If you've ever experienced anything like this, let me know in the comments. I read all of them. And if this story gave you chills, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Make sure to subscribe for more real-life horror stories you won't hear anywhere else. Because trust me, I've got more to tell. Stay safe out there. And maybe think twice before taking that next selfie.